Good evening, everybody. This is a public hearing in the matter of an application of the Lea County Solid Waste Authority for a modification and renewal of the Solid Waste Authority, Solid Waste Facility permit. The application was filed in December of 2017. The application was deemed complete by the department in February of 2019. Notice of both the application and this hearing have been given as required by the New Mexico Solid Waste Act and the New Mexico Solid Waste Management Regulations. The hearing today will be conducted pursuant to the Solid Waste Act and those regulations. We have two parties that have filed notices of intent to submit technical testimony. Those are the applicant and the Solid Waste Bureau of the department. In addition, we will allow public comment during the proceeding. And as soon as I get through with the preliminary matters, we will allow the first round of public comments. I will allow comment after the authority presents its testimony, and then again after the Bureau presents its testimony. So there will be opportunity later for further public comment. The administrative record is available here if anyone would like to look at it. Solid Waste Management Regulations and the Act are also available. If members of the public would like to look at those during the proceeding. So if there is nothing further at this point, oh, by the way, the hearing will be tape recorded and also will be recorded by a court reporter. So I notice we have folks who want to make public comment, and I would invite anyone who would like to make a public comment at this time to please stand and identify yourself, and we will swear you in.
Lorraine Villegas, lifelong Lea County resident.
Nicholas Maxwell.
Okay, if you all will stand, I'll swear you in. You swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Swear?
Yes.
Okay. Whoever wants to go first?
Oh, okay. I'll go first. I know that there's two other waste. One is asbestos and one hasn't been determined yet. And since I pay taxes, I like to be nosy about where my tax money is going. So since we haven't yet become aware of what that other mystery waste is going to be, I don't think I can support whatever's going on. So I'm going to oppose until it's disclosed as to what that is. And are we allowed to ask questions or?
You will.
So
after the testimony has been presented by the department, the Bureau of the department, you'll be allowed to ask their witnesses questions. And then after the applicant has presented his testimony, you'll also be allowed to ask them questions.
Okay, I'll say.
You'll have plenty of opportunity to ask questions.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Maxwell, and I would just like to start today by saying that the permit as located at the Eunice Public Library was available Monday through Thursday from 8 to 5:30, Friday from 8 to 5. The library is not available on the weekends and is not available after 5:30 in the evening. I would also like to inquire as to whether this proceeding will be conducted in Spanish.
No, it will not.
Do you have a transcriber, somebody who can translate here?
We do not have somebody available to transcribe this. We can't, Mr. But by the way, Cody Burns, the man sitting next to me, is the hearing clerk, and he does speak Spanish, and so if folks need assistance in terms of interpreting, Mr. Burns will interpret.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any preliminary matters that would testimony. So I ask counsel for the applicant to present the applicant's case.
Call as first technical witness Charles Beaver. Mr. Beaver, will you state for the record your name, please?
Yes, Charles Fiedler.
By whom are you employed?
I'm a senior associate with Fluid Environmental, PSC.
What has been your role in the Lea County landfill permit application?
I have served as the engineer of record for the Lea County Landfill project. I'm responsible for the development of the Lea County Landfill permit application for permit renewal and modification pursuant to the New Mexico Solid Waste Act and the New Mexico Solid Waste rules.
Have you previously filed a statement of intent to present technical testimony in this matter and written direct technical testimony in this document?
Yes. My written direct testimony is included in the Lea County Landfill as Exhibit 3.1.
Do you adopt your written technical testimony filed with the statement of intent as your direct testimony in this document?
Yes, I do.
Are your qualifications to present technical testimony in this matter included in the written testimony filed with the statement of intent?
Yes, my qualifications are provided as Lea County Landfill Exhibit 1.1.
Please identify, for the record, the sections of the LCLF application covered in your written direct testimony.
Sections of the application covered in my direct testimony include volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and the permit plan set. This information also identified in the Lea County Exhibit 2.
Is it your professional opinion that the LCLF facility, the application, and the engineering design are in compliance with the requirements of the solid waste rules?
Yes, the Lea County Landfill facility, the application, and the engineering design are in full compliance with the applicable solid waste rules.
Did you review the permit conditions, and were there any discussions with the New Mexico Environmental Department regarding these conditions?
Yes. I reviewed the permit conditions and discussed several minor modifications with the NMED Solid Waste Bureau for their consideration. The most significant suggestion related to the Lea County Solid Waste Authority and how they are managing the landfill. The authority revised the management of the landfill during their most recent contract operation renewal, and permit condition 21 was modified to reflect the current responsibilities and address future changes. Permit condition 21 was revised to read as follows. The Lea County landfill is owned and operated by the Lea County Solid Waste Authority under a joint powers agreement. The authority does not have any employees and currently contracts with Lea County to provide operational support service. Example, financial, administrative, managerial, and gate attendant staff. The Lea County Solid Waste Authority designated representative is the Lea County Director of Environmental Services. All operational and environmental responsibilities are managed by this designated representative. The Lea County Solid Waste Authority is currently contracting with Waste Connections, Inc., doing business as Camino Real Environmental Services to provide earth moving and landfill operations. The Solid Waste Bureau must be notified within 15 days of the effective date of any changes in these current operational arrangements. We reviewed the revised permit modifications with the authority and find them acceptable.
I have no further questions of Mr. Beaver at this time. Would ask if the Bureau is willing to stipulate to his testimony now or at a later point in this hearing.
What I would suggest as a way to proceed is that we will allow each of your witnesses to present the summary of testimony, and at the end of the presentation of all of the testimony, we will allow cross-examination of any of the witnesses by department and members of the public. And that way, they can direct their question to the person they think is appropriate, and the person who is directed to someone else is more appropriate, we can defer to the other witness.
Then the applicant would call as his next witness, Michael Clearwell. Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Michael Clearwell.
By whom are you employed?
I'm a senior project manager with Board Environmental PSC.
What was your role in the Lea County landfill permit application?
I have served as the Environmental Monitoring and Compliance Project Manager for the Lea County Landfill Project. I am responsible for the development of the landfill gas and leachate management plans, the closure, post-closure plan, and post-closure, post-closure cost estimates, the groundwater monitoring suspension request, the Vado zone monitoring plan for the Lea County landfill application for permit renewal and modification pursuant to the New Mexico Solid Waste Act and the New Mexico Solid Waste Rules.
Have you previously filed a statement of intent to present technical testimony in this matter and written direct technical testimony in this docket?
Yes, my written direct testimony is included as Lea County Landfill Exhibit 3.2.
Do you adopt your written technical testimony filed with the statement of intent as your direct testimony in this docket?
Yes, I do.
Are your qualifications to present technical testimony in this matter included in the written testimony filed with the statement of intent?
Yes, my qualifications are provided as Lea County Landfill Exhibit 1.2.
Would you please identify the sections of the Lea County landfill application covered in your written direct testimony?
The sections of the application covered in my direct testimony include volumes 1, 2, 5, and 6. This information is also identified in Lea County Landfill Exhibit 2.
Is it your professional opinion that the Lea County landfill facility, the application, and the environmental monitoring network are in compliance with the requirements of the solid waste rules?
Yes, the Lea County landfill facility, the application, and the environmental monitoring network are in full compliance with the applicable solid waste rules.
Thank you. The applicant will call as his next witness Lorenzo Velasquez. Mr. Velasquez, would you state your full name for the record?
Lorenzo Velasquez.
By whom are you employed?
I'm the Solid Waste Authority Administrator for the Lea County Landfill.
Could you please summarize your role in the Lea County landfill permit application?
As Administrator for the Lea County Landfill, my responsibilities include planning, organizing, and executing all policies and operations for the site. I provide oversight for preparation of the application for permit renewal and modification with a focus on landfill operations, contingencies, waste screening, and record keeping and training requirements.
Have you previously filed a statement of intent to present technical testimony in this matter and written direct technical testimony in this docket?
Yes, my written direct testimony is included in Lea County Landfill Exhibit 3.3.
Do you adopt your written technical testimony filed with a statement of intent as your direct testimony in this docket?
Yes, I do.
Are your qualifications to present technical testimony in this matter included in the written testimony filed with the statement of intent?
Yes, my qualifications are provided as Lea County Landfill Exhibit 1.3.
Please identify the sections of the Lea County landfill application covered in your written direct testimony.
The sections of the application covered in my direct testimony includes volume 1, 2, and 3, and this information is also identified in Lea County Landfill Exhibit 2.
Is it your professional opinion that the Lea County landfill facility and the application are in compliance with the requirements of the solid waste rules?
Yes, the Lea County Landfill facility and the application are in full compliance with the applicable solid waste rules.
The applicant will call its last witness, Todd Randall. Mr. Randall, would you state your name for the record?
Todd Randall.
By whom are you employed?
I am the city engineer for the City of Hobbs, New Mexico, and the board chair for the Lea County Solid Waste Authority.
Could you please summarize your role in the Lea County landfill application process?
As the chair of the authority, I provide oversight for the preparation of the application for the permit modification or renewal. In addition, I am responsible for the preparation of disclosure statements, financial assurance, and compliance with the State Waste Act.
Have you previously filed a statement of intent to present technical testimony in this matter and written direct technical testimony in this docket?
Yes. My written direct testimony is included in Lea County Landfill Exhibit 3.4.
Do you adopt your written technical testimony filed with the statement of intent as your direct testimony in this docket?
Yes, I do.
Are your qualifications to present technical testimony in this matter included in the written testimony filed with the statement of intent?
Yes. My qualifications are provided as Lea County Landfill Exhibit 1.4.
Please identify the sections of the Lea County landfill application covered in your written direct testimony.
The sections of the application covered in my direct testimony includes volumes 1, 2, and 6. This information is also identified in Lea County Landfill Exhibit 2.
Is it your professional opinion that the Lea County landfill facility and the application are in compliance with the requirements of the solid waste rules?
Yes. The Lea County landfill facility and application are in full compliance with applicable solid waste rules.
At this time, this concludes the applicant's testimony.
Thank you very much. I would ask if the Bureau at this point has any questions of the applicant, including questions about the statement of intent and the summary testimony that was previously filed, because they adopted all of that here today. So if you have any questions about that, you should ask them now.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. We just have a couple for primarily Mr. Fiedler, possibly Mr. Velasquez. The first one would be, how often are the Waste Connections employees actually at the site, at the landfill?
They're at the site every day.
Okay, and what is the role that they play there? What kind of services
They
are
are
they providing?
providing operational work in the back of the landfill, essentially placing garbage, burying garbage, compacting garbage, covering waste at the end of the day, moving dirt for that daily cover operation, and responsible for equipment maintenance, general operation of maintaining roads, looking after things that they're directed to do from an environmental monitoring standpoint, that at the direction of the Lea County Environmental Services Director, Mr. Velasquez, they're taking samples, measuring gas, doing the environmental monitoring, reporting to Mr. Velasquez so that we can compile those reports and submit them to the agency in response to requirements of the permit and requirements of the rules.
Okay, thank you. This is something that came up kind of late in the process about who was going to be the primary operator or not primary, but the shared operations. So as a follow-up question to what I mentioned just a moment ago, is Waste Connections operator of record?
No, they are not. The Lea County Solid Waste Authority is the owner and operator, and they contract those services to other folks, but they are ultimately responsible for the operation on their reporting, providing the annual reports, providing the monitoring reports, providing all of the documentation required under the permit through their contract with the county, association with the county, who is managing that operation for them as their employees.
Thank you. We have no further questions.
Other members of the public who have questions for the applicant?
I would like to know if there's an opportunity to ask the hearing officer a question.
Certainly.
Okay. I'd like to know, I read in the rules that there is an opportunity to classify or not classify a community as a vulnerable community. And when building a vertical structure, it is in the rules that if a community has been designated as a vulnerable community, that additional community meeting will be held. To my knowledge, there has not been an additional community meeting, which makes me believe that the clerk has deemed this community as not vulnerable. And I would like to know if there is any explanation as to how that conclusion was made.
Yes, I'm going to refer that question to the applicant. The applicant did prepare the vulnerability assessment and filed it as part of its statement of intent. So I believe it was Mr. Propoga did that.
No, it was
I'm sorry. Okay. You can go ahead and give a
Yes,
summary of what you filed. So the vulnerability, I'll let them explain that. Okay.
Yes, and so in June of 2017, we completed our vulnerable area assessment. We followed the current requirements of the Environment Department with respect to that vulnerable area assessment. It's looking at key characteristics in the community and that assessment was delivered to the agency in a timely fashion. It's required by the 2007 solid waste rules. It's primarily focused on new landfills or landfills seeking a modification, which this one was in terms of the lateral or vertical. We're going higher with this facility to maximize the availability of airspace that's present in it. The purpose of the determination is to find out whether an area's population is economically stressed and bears a burden of a disproportionate number of regulated facilities. That VAA was included if you had an opportunity to look at the permit application as Volume 4, Section 2, Attachment 42C in the application. And the conclusions of that vulnerable area assessment were that the area within 4-mile radius from the center of the facility, what they're looking at is it deemed to be a vulnerable if it contains a percentage of economically stressed households that is greater than the statewide percentage, is the population of 50 or more with any square mile, and are there 3 or more regulated facilities in that area. The applicant went through this. The assessment revealed that the 4-mile radius does not contain more than 3 regulated facilities, and this is facilities that are regulated by an entity. We also concluded that the facility is not vulnerable areas as defined in the solid waste rules, and made that stipulation, or that results were provided to the agency, and they concurred with that it was not a vulnerable facility.
Okay, I have another question for the applicant. Do you anticipate with the addition of the new wastes to the facility listed as asbestos and other wastes not otherwise specified, at any time in the future, could this facility be taking radioactive wastes in that category?
Absolutely not. It's specifically prohibited by the rule for this type of facility. And yeah, from my perspective, no. There's no opportunity for this facility to take a regulated radioactive waste, unregulated either.
The rule you mentioned, do you know who modifies that rule? Is it the Solid Waste Bureau itself?
Does the Solid Waste Bureau, and I'm going to restate your question if I might so that I can understand. If you're asking, does the Solid Waste Bureau have the ability to modify that rule? All rules are subject to modification, but there's a significant process that they would have to go through to do something like that. And considering that there are facilities that are capable of handling this type of material and are designated for this type of material, I don't see any reason why anybody would move forward trying to modify that rule to accept radioactive material at this facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
He asked the question I was going to ask.
No, it was,
Ready to
hi.
go?
Yes, sir.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name's Rose Gardner from Eunice. And I just wanted to go back to, you indicated there were the three facilities were not in the 4-mile area. What kind of facilities are we looking for? You said regulated facilities. Is that like state regulated or federal regulated, or? I'm asking because Uranco's there, obviously they're regulated. Waste control's there, they're regulated. Sundance is there, it's an oil food processor. I'm sure they're regulated. And they are now building a Love's truck stop, which will be regulated by several different entities. So I'm just curious, I know Love's is new, but these other facilities have been there for a while.
It is, as we looked at it, the Urenco facility, I don't believe fell under the regulated category because it's outside of the state's control.
Okay.
So that left us with the two facilities, Sundance and Waste Control Services, and Waste Control Services is regulated in Texas.
And also that it's not built yet that I'm understanding, but CK Industries wants to build an oil reprocessing vat ponds and things. That's not included in that either?
CK wasn't in place and wasn't
Yeah.
permitted at the point in time that we started with this. It has subsequently been permitted, but it's not operational, so that it doesn't fall into
Doesn't
the-
fall under it?
We don't know if it'll ever get built.
Oh.
So it's a future facility, but for this analysis, it wasn't counted in there.
Okay, thank you.
Additional question?
Usually we only let one opportunity to ask the question, but at this point, I'll let you proceed.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question. How will anticipated future special waste included in your disposal management plan become part of the permit? And said another way, how will future special wastes that are not specified specifically in that permit, right now we've got vehicle wash sump waste, how will a future additional wastes be added to the ability of this facility to accept and dispose of them?
And an additional future waste is typically brought into an application through the next application cycle, which will be in the next 20 years.
In the application, I have seen where it says that there is an administrative process for approving additional wastes. Do you anticipate that additional wastes can be done administratively without a public hearing?
I anticipate that they would, yes. And I'm not absolutely sure, but I would defer to the Solid Waste Bureau to make sure, to be absolutely sure that the administrative process would be the way to do that.
Thanks for entertaining my question.
You bet.
Any other questions from the public? Not, the applicant's testimony needs to be admitted into the record. As I understand it, the applicant's testimony is presented as exhibits one, applicant's exhibits 1 through 4. Correct. Is that correct?
There are subparts to 3, so we didn't hit all 3 with subparts.
Okay, that's correct. It will include, the admission will include all the subparts. If there's no objection, we will admit the applicant's testimony.
I object.
Pardon me?
I object.
You state your objection, please.
My objection is I believe this is going to have a negative socioeconomic impact on the community. My objection is not based on technical testimony, but it's a statement based on my belief as a citizen of the county. Thank you. I object.
Thank you. The objection is noted. It's 1 through 4 will be admitted.
I think I'm going to also object because I'm not sure of what this other waste is going to be that's coming into our community. So until I know, I can't support it.
Okay, your objection is also noted. That concludes the applicant's presentation. At this point, we'll go to testimony from the Bureau, and I'll ask Mr. Johnson to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. My name is Owen Johnson. I'm Assistant General Counsel for the New Mexico Environment Department. The first witness I call is George Schuman, who is 2 places to my left. Swearing in, sorry.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, let's ask, do you want to all be sworn in at once? Yes, swear all of the Bureau witnesses in at this point. Please identify yourself for the record, and then we'll swear you in together.
Owen Johnson.
Orly Ashley Mark, Solid Waste Bureau Chief.
George Schuman, Solid Waste Bureau Permanent Section Manager.
And James Dyer, hydrologist with the Solid Waste Bureau.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Second, we did not swear in the applicant's witnesses.
We should, let's just do that as a technical matter. So if the applicant's witnesses would identify themselves, and I'll swear them in. Charles Spiegel. Michael Crapo.
Lorenzo Velazquez.
Todd Randall.
Okay, do you each swear that the testimony you gave in the proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay. We'll go ahead with Mr. George Schuman. Mr. Schuman, what is your name and job title?
My name is George Schuman, and I'm the Permit Section Manager for the Solid Waste Bureau.
And as permit section manager, what are your responsibilities?
I'm responsible for management of the permit application review process, including assignments of applications to staff for review. I'm responsible for assignment of environmental monitoring reports to staff for review. I'm responsible for review of their work products and for development of programmatic guidance regarding environmental monitoring at landfills and permit application development and review.
How long have you worked for the Bureau?
Worked for the Bureau for 7 years and for the Department for 24 years.
And what are your educational and professional qualifications?
I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in Geosciences from Pennsylvania State University. Hold a Master of Science degree in Geology from the University of South Carolina, and I'm a licensed professional geologist in the state of Pennsylvania.
And is your resume pre-filed with our submitted testimony as Exhibit 2?
Yes, it is.
Did you pre-file written technical testimony in this matter?
Yes, I did.
And is Exhibit 1 your testimony?
Yes, it is.
Do you adopt that written testimony today?
Yes, I did.
Please go ahead and give us a brief overview of your testimony.
My testimony will cover the Bureau's performance of public notice for this application hearing and the Bureau's development of the administrative record.
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the public notice issues, which will address potentially some questions from the public. Where are the requirements for the public notice of a permit hearing found?
Notice of a permit hearing, those requirements are found in the New Mexico Solid Waste Act, in the Department's permit procedures, that's 20.1.4 New Mexico Administrative Code, and further, Chapter 14, Article 11 of the state statutes contain further requirements regarding publication of notice.
Okay, and in particular, kind of moving ahead, what are the requirements for publishing notice?
Okay, so for publishing notice, the notice needs to be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the county where the facility is located. It has to be published as both a legal advertisement and a one-to-one place in the newspaper.
And how and when was the notice published this time?
The notice was published in the Hub's New Sun on April 10th, 2019 as a legal advertisement and as a display advertisement.
And what are the requirements for physical posting of the notice?
This statute requires that the notice be posted at 4 locations in the city of the facility.
And when and where was the notice posted for this hearing?
The notice was posted on April 10th, 2019 at 8 locations in Eunice, Hobbs, and Lovington.
Does that include the library that was mentioned earlier?
Yes, so that includes both the landfill entrance and libraries in Eunice, Hobbs, and Lovington.
Okay. Do you feel that the postings there satisfy the regulatory requirements?
Yes, they did.
What about electronic posting? Where and when was that done?
So the notice was posted on the department's website at 2 different locations on April 16th, 2019.
And was there a deadline for these public notice actions that the Bureau's public notice actions satisfied?
Yes, so the Solid Waste Act requires that the hearing notice be mailed, published, and posted within 60 days of deeming the application administratively complete. These actions were completed 51 days after deeming the application complete, therefore this deadline was met.
Okay. Did you take any additional actions beyond what was required?
Yeah, we did. We provided the notice by mail to the city of Jail, city of Lovington, city of Hobbs, and the town of Tatum. Now, they're located greater than 10 miles from the facility, but they're also members of the authority, so we provided them with notice of the hearing as well. The notice was posted in the Solid Waste Bureau's office suite in Santa Fe in a manner visible to visitors to the Bureau. We often get walk-in business with the Bureau, so that was posted in a manner for those people to see. We prepared hearing notice flyers and delivered those to the landfill, and they were handed out to customers of the landfill. And we prepared public service announcements regarding this hearing. Those were forwarded to our department's public information officer for forwarding to local area radio stations.
And what were the reasons for taking these additional actions?
Really, there are two reasons. One is the applicant is required to perform notice when they file an application with the department. And those requirements are a little more extensive than the requirements for the public hearing. And so we just do additional things in order to try to be commensurate with those activities. And secondly, we just want to provide notice in a way that's going to reach as many people as possible.
And does that include publishing some of them in Spanish?
Yes, when it comes to notice of the hearing, we prepare it in English and then hire a certified translator to translate that in Spanish. So when we provide notice of the hearing, it's done in both English and Spanish.
Okay. Thank you. At this point, I move for the admission of the department's exhibits 1 and 2.
Any objection? Those exhibits will be admitted.
And then one follow-up question about special waste in particular, also to sort of address concerns we've heard tonight. What is it and how is it managed?
So special waste is solid waste. It is not hazardous waste, so that needs to be made clear. But it's a solid waste that's eligible to go into a subtotally landfill. But it may have special handling requirements that the landfill needs to be aware of. So in order to dispose of a special waste at the landfill, someone who has that waste needs to contact the landfill, notify them of what they have, and submit information to the landfill so they can review it ahead of time and basically approve it for disposal. Once that occurs, then arrangements may be made to bring that waste to the landfill for disposal. So an example of a special waste is asbestos waste. And the reason for that is it has special handling requirements. The solid waste rules require that it be wrapped, transported, and placed in a landfill in a specific manner to prevent the release of fibers into the air. Again, while it's eligible to go into a subtotally landfill, it can't just be placed in with ordinary municipal waste. It has to be handled in a special way.
And what do you see typically in waste that is classified as not
Special waste not otherwise specified.
not otherwise specified? Right?
So that's kind of like a catch-all category for any waste that's eligible to go into this landfill. But the landfill may decide that they want to see some testing results up front, or that it be handled and transported in a specific manner. As mentioned, one of the wastes mentioned in this DMP is the vehicle wash sump waste. And the reason why that's a special waste not otherwise specified is because the definition of special waste doesn't specifically identify that wash sump waste as a special waste. So we put it into this catch-all category of not otherwise specified. And the reason why it needs to be handled as a special waste is twofold. One is it may be wet. So when the sumps are cleaned out at a car wash, it's grits, it's sand, and it's water. And so waste can go into a subtotally landfill if it has free liquids in it. And so a test needs to be done to make sure that it doesn't have free liquids in it. If the test shows that it does not have free liquids, then it's eligible to go in the landfill. The other reason is when people wash their vehicles, the greases, oils, and just washing the wheels and tires can cause various metals to be in that material, that grit. With the use historically of lead wheel weights, one of those materials can be lead. So the material needs to be tested then to be certain that it's not hazardous for lead. And so the landfill would ask, if someone says, I have this wash sump waste to dispose, the landfill would ask, show me evidence testing that it does not contain free liquids, and show me evidence that it doesn't contain lead above the hazardous level. Once the landfill receives that information and verifies that indeed those requirements are met, then they can make arrangements to have it disposed in the landfill.
Thank you. I calls my next witness, James Dyer. Mr. Dyer, what is your name and job title?
My name is James Dyer, and I'm a hydrologist in the permit section of the Solid Waste Bureau.
How long have you worked for the Bureau?
11 years now.
And what is your educational and professional qualification?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science from the University of New Mexico. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration from the University of New Mexico. And I have a Master's in Water Resources from the University of New Mexico.
As a hydrologist in the permitting section, what are your responsibilities?
I'm primarily responsible for the review of landfill permit applications, the review of landfill closure and post-closure plans, and the review of groundwater and methane monitoring reports.
And did you submit written technical testimony in this matter?
Yes, I did.
Do you adopt that written testimony today?
Yes, I do.
Can you please provide a brief overview of that testimony?
Sure. I reviewed Volume 1 of the application and the landfill's plan of operations. The contingency plan, the waste screening plan, the transportation plan, the landfill gas management plan, the special waste disposable plans, and the Vadostone monitoring plan for compliance with the solid waste rules.
Okay. Can you briefly describe the permit application process?
Sure. So when a bureau receives the initial application for the solid waste facility, it goes through an initial review. After initial review of the application, the bureau may deem the application to be administratively complete or issue a request for more additional information to the applicant. When the bureau receives the requested additional information, the bureau then reviews the application a second time. Once again, the bureau may deem the application administratively complete or issue a request for additional information a second time. When the bureau receives the requested additional information, the bureau then reviews the application a third time. And at that point, the bureau either deems the application complete or may deem the application without prejudice. Or excuse me, may deny the application without prejudice. Each of the bureau's requests for additional information and the applicant's responses to them are in the administrative record.
Okay, can you please, this is a little bit off the script, but can you please describe what a Vadostone monitoring well is?
Yeah, a Vadostone monitoring system and program in place at the Lea County Landfill is to monitor any liquid that may escape the landfill. They have, in their previous application for approval, they had a groundwater suspension request that was approved by the Bureau, and part of that approval process is to put into place a Vadostone monitoring network that is to the standard of the solid waste rule. And in this situation, they do have a Vadostone monitoring system, and currently the Vadostone monitoring network consists of 2 monitoring wells, an up gradient VM101 and a down gradient VM102. In addition to the existing Vadostone monitoring network, the landfill is proposing to install 2 additional Vadostone monitoring wells, VM103 and VM104. Proposed down gradient monitoring, wells VM103 and VM104 will be installed approximate to the southwestern limit of cell 12 and the southern limit of cell 11. Each will be screened across the unconsolidated soil/clay zone interface. Each Vadostone well monitoring well will be monitored for the presence of free liquids on a monthly basis for a period of 12 months. If the monthly monitoring results continually indicate the absence of fluid in those wells, the subject wells will transition to quarterly monitoring, and the monitoring results submitted to the department within 30 days of each of the calendar quarters. In the field parameter measurements indicate a well show evidence of non-natural constituents, the department will be notified within 48 hours, and verification resampling for the parameters listed in attachment V.2.G will be conducted within 2 weeks. If the verification resampling analytical results indicate that a potential landfill release may have occurred, within 90 days of that finding, fluid samples from each active landfill sump will be collected and analyzed for the parameters listed in attachment V.2.G for comparative evaluation with the verification results. The comparative evaluation results will then be provided for the department for review.
Thank you. A moment ago, we discussed your credentials and educational history. Is your resume pre-filed as Exhibit 4?
Yes.
And is your testimony that you recently adopted, is that filed as Exhibit 3?
Yes.
We move now to admit Exhibits 3 and 4.
Are there any objections? If not, the exhibits will be adjourned.
Thank you. My next witness is Orly Ashley Marks. Ms. Ashley Marks, will you go ahead and state your name and job title? Okay.
My name is Orly Ashley Marks, and I'm the Solid Waste Bureau Chief in New Mexico Environment Department.
How long have you held that position?
I've been the Bureau Chief for 13 years, since January 2006.
Please describe your experience and professional background.
My resume is attached to the Department Statement of Intent as NMED Exhibit A. I have a bachelor's degree in physical geography from the University of Colorado. I have 30 years of professional environmental management experience, of which 20 years has been in the solid waste management field at the county and state government levels. And I've held numerous positions, and I've been compliance coordinator and operator for landfills, transfer station, a recycling material recovery facility, waste to energy plant, yard waste and fish composting facilities, and management of treatment of millions of gallons of leachate and oversight of laboratory contracts for the testing of groundwater landfills at groundwater monitoring at landfills.
And did you prepare technical testimony for this hearing?
Yes, I did. My written testimony was filed as part of the department's statement of intent as NMED Exhibit 7.
Do you adopt Exhibit 7 as your sworn testimony for the record?
Yes.
Please provide a, I'm sorry, move on. Before I forget, I want to address a couple of questions that came up with the public. Could you describe how we review what's a vulnerable population, vulnerable community?
That's later in my testimony.
Okay, we'll get to that in a bit then. What about the question about who modifies solid waste rules? Can you address that?
Yes, I can address that. The solid waste is regulated in New Mexico under both statutory requirements, which means those have to be approved by the full legislature, and then we have the solid waste rules, which are promulgated and go through a very stringent hearing process that occurred in the year 2007, and that is before the Environmental Improvement Board. And they take testimony. They had an open process where a lot of people testified either for or against the rules. And once that process was completed, that became the rules that we abide by to regulate solid waste in New Mexico.
So can the Bureau change those rules unilaterally?
No.
And quickly, the definition of regulated entities within the rules, you have do you have a definition for that, since that came up earlier too?
Regulated entities are those facilities such as landfills, transfer stations. They're regulated under the rules as requiring to go through a permit process for those. We have other facilities such as recycling facilities, composting facilities, collection centers, which are small local collection facilities, are registered by the department. But the largest facilities require hearings and a permit to be issued for those.
And that's something we talked about a little bit more for the new
Yes.
testimony. Okay. Have there been any changes in the testimony that you pre-filed?
No.
Okay, hearing officer, at this time I would like to move for the admission of Department Exhibit number 7.
Any objection? Yeah, exhibits will be admitted.
And to follow up a few more questions, what is the department's or the Bureau's authority to issue a permit?
The Cabinet Secretary is authorized by the New Mexico Solid Waste Act, that's NMSA 1978, sections 74-9-1 to 43. To issue permits, issue a permit with terms and conditions, or deny a permit application as specified in the solid waste rules 20.9.3.18 NMAC, which was promulgated in 2007.
And when was this application deemed to be administratively complete?
I deemed the application complete on February 18th, 2019, and that can be found in the administrative record as number 22.
Moving to a government and business concern disclosure statement and related information provided by the applicant, were you responsible for the review of the disclosure statement and the Department of Public Safety background checks?
Yes.
And what were your findings based on your evaluation of the government entity and key employee form?
I determined that all the required disclosure forms were properly filled out. They contained responsive answers to questions, and each of the required key employee forms were correctly prepared, and all answers to the questions were included.
Did the Department of Public Safety report identify any history of willful disregard for environmental laws in any state or the United States?
And just for clarification, those completed reports are provided to the Department of Public Safety for an individual background check. And based on this, the completed government entity form notes that there have been no permits or any other items to suspend or deny this permit.
What is your assessment of the Department of Public Safety findings and the private investigation background check reports?
This information will contain the key employee and entity reports prepared by the Public Safety and private investigative reports demonstrate there is no reasonable cause to revoke, deny the Lea County landfill permit application as specified in the Solid Waste Act 74-9-24B NMSA 1978. There were no convictions in the record for any felonies, restraint of trade, price fixing, bribery, or fraud within the past 10 years.
And are these forms included in your testimony or as part of the administrative record?
No, they are not. They are not included as part of the record as these are kept in confidential files.
Did you complete an independent review of the Bureau's Lea County enforcement files to confirm that the enforcement history information provided by the applicant is correct?
Yes, I approved a table of compliance history, and that's included as part of the administrative record, number LC40.
What are your findings regarding the applicant's operational compliance history?
During the 18-year period in the Solid Waste Bureau's file, I discovered there were 27 violations during that time frame. The applicant's managers and operators demonstrated average ability and knowledge to successfully sustain a satisfactory level of operational efficiency. Permit conditions are recommended to ensure proper training for leachate measurement and intermediate cover maintenance.
Thank you. Moving to financial assurance, did you complete a review of the permit application and the Bureau's financial assurance files for the landfill?
Yes, I did.
And what financial assurance mechanism is this applicant using?
The applicant has chosen to use the local government test, which is specified in the solid waste rules 20.9.10.19.
What is your opinion regarding implementation of required financial assurance requirements?
The applicant successfully demonstrated above average implementation of local government test mechanism as required by the rules.
Moving to environmental justice, did you evaluate this permit application in light of those principles?
Yes, I did. I considered information in the vulnerable area assessment provided by the consultant, information included in the application, existing land use information around the facility. I evaluated that doing air photo analysis, local data about the area provided by the Environmental Protection Agency, environmental justice screen data, which is available online to ensure a review of that shows that there's no distributional process or procedural justice principles were considered during this review to make an assessment.
Would the renewal of the permit for this landfill create a distributional injustice?
No, there is no distributional justice based on the review of the renewal application, the vulnerable area assessment, and a view of the local data that I did review from the EJ screen information.
And what is your assessment of the landfill's compatibility with the surrounding land use?
I have not found any information in our records or from other sources that raise concern about the location of this facility. As the location of this facility is of long standing and the landfill is predominantly surrounded by vacant land, there is minimal residential development near the site, nor am I aware that residents in the area have expressed concerns about the continued operation or permitting of the landfill. The Bureau has not received any calls or correspondence from residents expressing any issues of concern after public notice were provided.
Did you prepare a compliance history for the landfill?
Yes, I did. I again prepared an 18-year enforcement table. I reviewed the Bureau's county's enforcement files to independently assess the record to determine the ability and knowledge of managers and operators to successfully comply with the rules and manage this facility.
And what is your assessment of this long-term compliance record?
Lea County Solid Waste Authority has demonstrated an average ability to sustain long-term successful operation of the facility with only a few notices of repeat violations.
In your opinion, would issuance of a 20-year permit likely pose a disparate risk or cumulative impacts to residents near the landfill?
No, the ongoing operations of the Lea County Landfill should not place any additional negative burdens on the surrounding community based on the proposed conditions and the quality of the application. Continued operation of this landfill will provide a benefit by providing needed solid waste management service in this area at a reasonable cost.
And now we can talk more explicitly about the vulnerable area assessment. Did you review what was submitted by the applicant?
Yes, I did.
And what were your findings?
My review found that the assessment appropriately evaluated all three of the necessary criterion and that the report, maps, and tables were properly prepared by Gordon Environmental PCS staff in accordance with the rule requirements.
And are any of those three criteria present at the landfill?
No, none of the three criteria were met.
Is the Lea County landfill located in a vulnerable area as defined by the rules?
No.
Was the vulnerable area assessment approved by the Cabinet Secretary of the New Mexico Environment Department?
Yes, a summary report was provided with the information to the Cabinet Secretary, and Cabinet Secretary Butch Tongate approved and signed the vulnerable area determination on June 14th, 2018.
Did you prepare recommended permit conditions for consideration by the applicant?
Yes, I did.
And have the parties agreed upon the permit conditions as provided? And what is, I need to bring this to the hearing officer's attention. They're now in Exhibit 10 to replace the last 5 pages that were in the original notice of intent and part of Exhibit 7. That was distributed as a supplement to.
Who's in the supplement that was filed?
Yep, that's Exhibit 10. If the permit is issued with the proposed conditions, what weight would the additional permit conditions carry, and what would be the result of noncompliance with those conditions?
The permit conditions carry the force and effect of the solid waste rules. As such, they are enforceable by the Bureau. Non-compliance with the permit conditions may result in the issuance of notices of violations or administrative compliance order that could be issued with penalties.
Based on the Bureau's team review and your assessment of the knowledge and ability of this applicant to successfully operate the facility in compliance with the rules, is there any basis to deny the permit?
There is no basis to deny the permit. The applicant submitted a well-prepared final permit application that was submitted in February of 2018, and they were responsive to our 2 requests for additional information that meets and the application as submitted meets the applicable rule requirements.
Does the Solid Waste Bureau have a proposed recommendation regarding the application?
Yes.
And what is it or them?
The Solid Waste Bureau recommends that the Secretary approve the permit renewal and modification with all 21 of the Bureau's proposed conditions as negotiated with the applicant, consultant, and attorneys representing the applicant based on our completed negotiations in this matter.
And Ms. Ashley Marks, is it your professional opinion that the conditions as proposed will improve the facility operations, be protective of public health, quality of life, and the environment?
Yes.
Are there any other matters you would like to address that we have not yet covered?
No.
Mr. Hearing Officer, we move for admission of her primary testimony, which is Exhibit 7, and then the conditions which came with the supplemental notice in Exhibit 10.
Any objection?
I object. My objection is I believe it does create a negative socioeconomic impact in the area, and I object to the addition of the new wastes at the facility.
The objection is noted. I would note a foundation for the objection is required for it to be allowed. I find there's no foundation for the objection, but I do note that you have stated it for the record, and I will admit the exhibits.
Thank you.
I did have one point of clarification. Mr. Johnson, I think you said that Exhibit 10 replaces the last 5 pages of Exhibit 7. I think it's the last 6 pages.
Okay.
Just to be clear, since I don't know if you have a
Thank you for that clarification. I do have it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
You have 2 more issues to bring to your attention. The first one is that we had originally a 4th witness, Ms. Erica Ortega, who had submitted some testimony pre-filed written. She is injured and was unable to attend with us today, and so we're not going to move to withdraw the testimony, but we recognize that she's not here to be cross-examined, and the weight might not be, you might not need as much weight.
Okay, so you are going to ask that be admitted?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any objection to the admission. I would admit it and give it the weight that I deem appropriate based upon the fact that he was not present for cost of no objection, we would review it.
And then one follow-up question for my,
No objection, we will review it.
and then one follow-up question for my original witness, Mr. George Schuman. I believe with the administrative index, which is currently Exhibit 9, that we have one addition. Could you explain that?
Yes, so the administrative record index that was filed with our statement of intent, subsequent to that, there was one addition to the administrative record, and that is item number LC41, which is a portion of the Waste Connections SEC 10K annual report. So that was added as LC41, and so we have an updated index for the administrative record as a result.
Do you want to mark that as a second exhibit?
We're happy to do that. We can ask your preference if you want us to sort of modify the administrative record as a whole. Okay. In that case, we'll call it. How do you want to move it? Be a separate exhibit? Let's go. That's probably the easiest. Let's call it Exhibit 11 and we'll do that.
So Exhibit 11 will be the updated administrative record. So Exhibit 11 will be the updated administrative record. Is there any objection to admitting the updated administrative record of Exhibit 11? Seeing that, I will move that.
We have no further discussion.
Does the applicant have any cross-examination for the project?
We have no cross-examination, no rebuttal.
Are there members of the public that have questions for the board? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Rose Gardner. I guess, I've listened to both sides. I'm still not, I'm still questioning what is this unspecified waste? And what is the future of it? What will be allowed? And also, just another question, but is there any medical waste that's included in this unspecified waste?
So to answer your second question first, medical waste we term infectious waste, and it is not categorized as special waste, not otherwise specified, so it can never come to the landfill as one of those wastes.
Okay.
So to the other question about a special waste not otherwise specified, what might be the scope of that category? And first of all, it has to be a solid waste that's eligible to go into this landfill. So as I mentioned before, it cannot be a hazardous waste. And by definition, it can't be radioactive waste because radioactive waste is excluded from the definition of solid waste, so that's clearly off the board. One example that typically comes up with the facilities of another type of special waste not otherwise specified would be restaurant grease trap pumpings. There are people who service those grease traps, and their pumpings will often consist of fat oils and grease, water, and food particles. And so they may approach a landfill and say, I've got these grease trap pumpings, can I dispose them at your landfill? And the reason why that would be a special waste, and specifically a special waste not otherwise specified, is because of the concern for the free liquids. They would have to demonstrate to the landfill that they've either dried it or mixed it with sand or dirt to absorb the moisture, and then provide evidence to the landfill that it passes that paint filter test, which tests for the free liquids. So that's an example of another type of not otherwise specified special waste. It's interesting because the special waste definition talks about some certain categories: asbestos waste, sludge, petroleum contaminated soils, and things of that nature. And then it has that catch-all category of not otherwise specified. And so that was just another example of such type of waste that simply can't go into, a restaurant's dumpster, for instance. It's got to be handled separately and identified to the landfill so they can be sure that it's been handled appropriately and treated appropriately, so that they then would be able to go into the landfill without causing any violations.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, George
Schuman. Those who answer that question.
I'm George Schuman, the permit section manager for the solid waste.
Okay, thank you. Just for the Yes.
The question I have has mainly to do with the locations of the public hearing notice. It was alluded to earlier, there were 8 locations, and I know some of those were specified. Can you read those into the record?
I can. May I use the administrative record?
Certainly.
Just one moment. So on April 10th, 2019, Mr. Dyer and I posted the hearing notice at 8 locations: at the Lea County Landfill entrance, the Eunice City Hall, the Eunice Senior Citizen Center, the Eunice Public Library, the U.S. Post Office in Eunice, the Hobbs Public Library, the Agnes Kastner Head Community Center Senior Center in Hobbs, and the Lovington Public Library.
The application permit, which is mostly being referenced to today by incorporation. We're not hearing a whole lot about this permit application. I found this week, I was notified about this, I missed the public notice. And I found out here just a few days ago, I tried to go to the library on the weekend. The library was not available to me. I did not have access to the permit application. So I went online, I tried to find it. I would like to know why the permit application is not accessible to me in a paper form on weekends and after hours for more than 30 minutes. And why it's not available online. The online website specifically states that the permit applications are not available in electronic format. Can I have a better understanding why this permit application is not available to me after hours and on the weekend?
Okay, so to answer your first question, we chose the Eunice Public Library because Eunice is the closest municipality to the landfill, and so we chose that as the location. The final version of the application was placed there on April 10th of this year, but prior to that, there was a draft version, a prior version of the permit application placed there in June of 2018. So since June of 2018, there's been a permit application on this proceeding at that library. Now, with respect to the hours, of course, we can't control their hours on that, but I will note that the public notice clearly states the availability of 2 locations for the public for the application, one being the Eunice Public Library, one being the NMED office in Santa Fe, and my information is listed there. If anyone had any questions about access to it, I'm available to be reached about that, and I did not receive a call from anyone about that. So secondly, about the application, if I may explain why it's not available on our website. This entire box here is the application. So it's not just a limited, few pages. It's basically a 1.5 foot of material, and that's simply a hurdle for us to get it posted on our website.
Where does that application, the one that you brought, where does that one stay?
That is the hearing officer's version for his use in evaluating the testimony here tonight. So,
is there a copy in your office?
We have another copy in our vehicle here, and there is the public copy we placed at the Eunice Public Library.
But you brought a copy with you that you brought from your office?
We did, yes.
Do you have any office machines in your office that you use to scan large documents into your computer systems?
We clearly don't have the ability to scan a document like that very easily.
Does your client that produces it have any way to provide it to you in electronic form, and did they provide any of it to you in electronic form?
Yes, they did.
Are there any other questions of members of the public? If not, we will conclude the testimony and comments portion of the hearing. We'll turn to post-hearing aspect of the proceeding. The rules provide that the parties have the opportunity to file proposed findings, conclusions, and recommended decision, as well as closing argument within 30 days from the date of availability of the transcript. So I would ask the court reporter if she has any indication of when she might be able to have that available, just to give the folks an idea of what kind of content we're looking at.
60 days.
Today?
Yes.
Well, that's a pretty lengthy period of time. Is there any way to expedite that? Because once you file, that triggers an additional process of time limits. So.
About 45 days.
That's fine with the applicant. We knew, we had created a part-time planning court reporter, and we appreciate her coming today. So we knew that she'd take some time to transcribe it because of her own current workload. If the state NMED doesn't object, 45 days or even 60 is okay with us.
We have no objection.
Okay, there's no objection. We will use 45 days as a guideline for you getting it filed. And then once the court reporter files the transcript, the parties will have 30 days from that period of time to file the proposed findings, conclusions, and recommended decision, and closing argument. And then 30 days after that, I'm required to make my recommended decision. And then the parties have 15 days after that to file comments on my recommended decision. And then the secretary has 30 days after those 15 days to file final decision. So it looks like I haven't had it all in my head, but it's going to be probably early fall before we get a decision from the secretary on this matter. So just so everybody knows that that's the situation, because the way the rule reads, we have to wait for the transfer to start the post-hearing process. Is there anything further to come before the hearing? If not, we will adjourn the hearing. Thank you very much for attending.